Hello, my name is Julian Taylor, and I'm a board librarian at the English Montreal School Board. I'm also a co-chair of the Dean QSLiN PD subcommittee this year. Um, I want to welcome you all to the QSLiN's first PD webinar of the 2025-2026 school year. Our theme that we've picked for this year is Meeting the Moment. And in keeping with the idea of addressing the realities of our school libraries, today's session is AI in the library, tools and tips for library personnel. We've looked at AI before, back at the 2024 Library Symposium, actually. But being that this is such a rapidly changing topic, we felt it would be a good idea, and also, as well as quite a few requests from the community as well, to look at this topic again, to see what has changed, and also to help members of our community that maybe are not all at the same point. So we all kind of have a common point of reference that we can move forward with. So and I think this is probably a pretty popular topic because after we announced it, we've actually had more people register for this session than any of the webinars we did last year. And I'm not even including the EMSB people who are all gathered together in one room. So yeah, it's a pretty popular topic. Hopefully, we're able to do it justice and you all come away feeling a little bit more empowered. Now then, if, however, you want to use the closed captioning function, you can. That's not a problem. It's available in the Zoom controls. If you don't see it, click on More at the top of your screen, and then scroll down to Language and Speech, and then just select Live Caption Feature. Also, please note that, like our previous webinars, as well as at our symposiums back when they were live, this is being recorded and will be made available on the QSLiN YouTube channel shortly. We're hoping before the middle of November is when we're hoping to have it public. Oh, and by the way, even though this topic is AI today, nothing of this introduction is AI. Just thought I'd point that out now. If you don't want to be included in the recording itself, by the way, not a problem. Just if you do speak at any time, make sure that your camera is off. Any video that is not accompanied by an audio will not be incorporated anyway, so don't worry about that. Now, before we actually get into it, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. While many of us today are participating from different areas of Quebec, each with its own history, I would like to acknowledge that today I'm speaking to you from the English Montreal School Board, which is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Kayakanaga, who were a founding nation of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We are grateful to live, learn, and work on the island of Tiohtià:ke, what we call Montreal in English. This island has a long and rich history of occupation and stewardship by Indigenous people for millennia and has long been a site of meeting and exchange for many First Nations, and it is currently home to diverse groups of Indigenous and other peoples. While I will be doing some of the presenting today, the bulk of it is going to be done by Stacey Allen from Learn. Over the years, we've had numerous collaborative adventures. Adventures? Yeah, I was going to say activities, but adventures sometimes might be a more entertaining word for it. Together with Learn, and we've always appreciated what they've been able to add to our professional development opportunities. And this year, not only will they be assisting in the actual hosting of this event, but they will actually be doing some of the presentations as well as into the rest of the school year. On that note, I would like to now turn things over to Stacey, who will do a much better job of introducing herself than I ever could. Stacey, take it away.
Well, thank you, Julian, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, everyone, again, for joining for today's session. So for those who don't know me, my name is Stacey. I've been working for Learn, which is a non-for-profit organization which supports the English school boards and educational community in Quebec. I've been working for Learn for about 4 years now, and part of my dossier is at Learn includes the RECI, being a RECI consultant for the Anglophone community, which means supporting school staff and students in building digital competency in their schools. So today we're going to be talking all about AI in the library. I want to begin by saying I'm definitely not an expert in AI. And as Julian mentioned, the field of AI is rapidly advancing. Even people that are working in the field of AI directly are finding new innovation every day. So hopefully today we'll present a few ideas, a few key concepts and foundations about AI. And as we move forward together, we can discuss how we're going to be using that in our educational community in a way that is ethically sound and pedagogically sound. So, a bit of our intentions for the next hour and a half or so. So, the main takeaways are hopefully to learn about some of the key considerations that we need to consider when using AI tools as school library staff. And also, I want to give you some time to practice creating prompts related to library tasks that you can help you alleviate and be efficient at some of those routine tasks that you're doing daily. So a bit of our plan, we're going to do a quick icebreaker. Then we're going to go into what is AI and artificial intelligence. Then a few of the things that we need to think about based on the guide that was put out by the Ministry of Education. And then we're going to talk a bit about how school library staff can leverage AI to help, again, with those daily tasks. So to begin the session with our little icebreaker, I thought we would play one of my favorite games, which is Pictionary. And I'm going to play two versions of Pictionary. So I'm going to start by sharing my whiteboard in Zoom. And I'm going to be drawing a picture. And if you know a bit about what I'm drawing, I'd like you to put your guesses in the chat. So I'm going to start drawing my first drawing. And when you think you know what it is, you can write your guess in the chat. Okay? I'm going to warn you now, I am a huge artist at stick figures. My 10-year-old is already laughs at many of my drawings. Okay. Okay. And while I'm drawing, I want you to think a bit about how long it's taking for the guess. Oh, I see a few guesses in there. Oh, I need a bigger. No, not a dog. Cow. Perfect. So that's a cow. Okay, so that took maybe what, about 30 seconds, a minute? I have one more here. I'm going to go back. Okay, so I'm going to start my second drawing. Okay. It's very hard. I'm drawing on a trackpad. Awesome. So a coffee mug. So see, that took about 10 seconds. You're all amazing at Pictionary. I'm glad I'm not playing with you regularly because I think I would probably really lose. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you a tool that is used with AI that we can use to play Pictionary. And when I'm showing you that, I want you to kind of think, or when you're playing around, about how fast AI is at guessing our drawings. So I'm going to go back to my presentation. So I'm going to open up this program by Google called Quick Draw. I'm going to give you a minute in case you want to play around on your own device. There's a link here to the website, or you could use the QR code if you're on a tablet or a cell phone. I'll give it a few minutes and for you to join. So when you open up Quick Draw, you're going to come to an interface like here, and we're basically going to play Pictionary. You're going to draw an item, and then the AI systems are going to try to guess what you're drawing. So here I have to draw a pillow. If you have sound, it's really funny. You can turn it on.
I see line, or suitcase, or grass, or crown, or square. Oh, I know, it's pillow.
Okay, so you see it guessed my answer in about 12 seconds. Okay. Ooh, newspaper, this one's a bit tricky.
I see line, or stairs, or square.
Kind of looks just like
I
my
see
pillow.
or hospital, or postcard, or passport. I see spreadsheet. Oh, I know, it's newspaper.
Okay, so about 7 seconds. I'll go through 6. I'll go through.
I see triangle. I see mountain. Oh, I know, it's crayon.
Okay, Mermaid.
I see nail, or tooth, or trousers, or diamond, or hourglass. I see hot air balloon, or eraser, or shovel. I see lipstick, or lead. Oh, I know, it's mermaid.
Perfect. I have one more here.
I see square, or skyscraper. Oh, I know, it's lipstick.
Okay.
I see line. Oh, I know, it's chair.
Perfect. So I'll give you a second if you're finishing up your game. But what I love about this AI tool is that it's a fun way to teach students and staff about how AI functions without actually using a big LLM system like Gemini or ChatGPT. So here, what the system is doing is it's using AI to predict what I'm drawing based on its data set. And what's fun about this program is that if I click on my drawings here, I actually get to see a bit of this data set that this program is using. So for example, up top, you'll see this is my drawing of a pillow and then my attempt to start drawing a bed. If I look down, I can see kind of where it's getting the idea of a pillow from. So you see here different drawings that people have done of different styles of pillows, right? So it's using this and comparing the lines in the drawing that I did to the ones on its data set. Okay? My daughter, who is in grade 5, loves this game because it's very inspiring. She gets to see how AI functions, but also she gets to see all the wonderful ways that people can illustrate and explain different drawings. So I'm going to go back to our presentation about what is AI. So as we can see, there are many different types of AI. So the tool that I just showed you, Quick Draw, it's really predicting. It has a bunch of drawings and it's kind of predicting or identifying, actually maybe it's a bit of both, of what I'm drawing using the information that it has in its data set. And many of us are quite familiar with different types of AI already. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Netflix, if you're using Waze to navigate through Montreal, which has saved my life and many times, you've been using AI. And when we hear about AI in the news more recently, what it's really talking about is generative AI. So AI systems that have huge data sets that are taking that information and recombining it in different ways to produce different content or content that is produced in a different format. Okay. So I want to talk a bit about what generative AI is and what it isn't, because I think that even though we're using it, it really comes down to an understanding of what AI is that is going to help us move forward ethically and think critically about how we're using it in our schools. So AI is trained sometimes on real-time data or static data. So there's Copilot, for example, is using real-time data from the internet using Bing search software. It's able to access articles that were put out a few hours ago on its data set. But there's also certain AI systems like Ask Britannica that is trained only on vetted articles. And it's very important to take the time to think about the data that's being put in our AI or that our AI models are trained on, because the reliability and the validity of whatever output or things that AI creates is really based on the data that is input in it or that it's trained on. We kind of have a saying, garbage in, garbage out. So if your AI model is being trained on the internet as a whole, anyone can put something up on the internet. My husband watches a ton of flat world documentaries, and AI systems can grab a hold of those resources and produce content that can look valid with valid sources. Versus AI system like Ask Britannica that is trained on vetted articles that were produced by Britannica and partners. So I think when we talk about AI, one of the questions that people had submitted was, could we maybe think about having a comparison table about the different reliability of different AI systems? And it really comes back to the data sets that these models are trained on. So some data is more accurate or reliable than others. Okay. AI, I like to think of it as kind of like a DJ. So AI doesn't create anything new, because I see a lot of people referring to things that they create with AI, that it's producing new content, but really AI is only remixing the data that already exists in different ways. So it's important to think that whatever we're creating with AI is actually already exist in some other form somewhere else. Okay? And likewise, AI is always trying to predict what we want to hear, and it always has something to say. It's never going to say, oh, I like your idea, like a one-liner. It's always going to elaborate and try to give you an answer. And it's not an oracle of truth. It often makes up things, it can hallucinate, and sometimes it's very hard to know when it is hallucinating, because it can produce sources that look accurate, but maybe when you do a bit of triangulation and you try to learn more about the author and the source, you'll find out through that deeper digging and evaluation that that resource perhaps doesn't exist or may exist in a different form. So it's just some things to be aware of. And AI is not really, again, creative or emotional. So it's not really creating anything. It's just a mathematical system that is taking data that already exists and combining it in different forms. So a bit about what AI does well and does not do well yet. And I say yet because, again, it is always changing. We're living in a time of rapid improvement in technology. But AI is great for repetitive tasks or analyzing data. So things like collections or your big CSV files. If you want to ask questions about a specific data set, it is wonderful at speeding up those repetitive tasks that involve combing through large amounts of data or text. Okay? It is also really good at improving accessibility. So I believe as educators and library personnel, we always have to have that accessibility piece in our hat so that we can cater to as many students and staff as possible. So AI is wonderful at writing and generating alt text for images, doing transcripts, or doing rough translations of different content. And I'm going to look at some of those AI tools a little later in this presentation. What AI doesn't do well yet is definitely contextual understanding. So anything local or anything that asks for an opinion about something. So that can be something to consider when you're trying, or teachers are trying to AI proof their lessons, is that if you're asking, if you're framing your question in a way where you're asking for a specific context or a specific local understanding, your AI system is not necessarily going to give you a sufficient answer. Again, AI is also not good at checking for biases. There's obviously inherent biases in our data sets. So for example, if I'm thinking of Copilot that's using Bing, having access to the internet as a whole, or whatever content is available in Bing search, there is inherent bias in that data. For a long time, it was only maybe people of a certain financial and ethical or people that had access and knowledge to produce things online were people of a certain maybe ability or people with a certain background. So it's for sure important to think of bias that's inherent in the data set or in the algorithms of the AI system itself. And another thing that AI isn't doing so well, isn't doing great with yet, is also generating videos of specific topics or images. I know images have improved a lot, but there's still a long way to go. So if you're asking for AI like Sora 2 to generate videos on, physics concepts like gravity, it's still not necessarily perfect, and there's still a lot of vetting that needs to take place. So one of the questions that people submitted when registering for this session, which I thought was amazing, was how do we ensure that students are remaining competitive in the job market? And that's an anxiety that many parents and school staff might feel, is how are we going to prepare the youth for a job market and a world where AI is rapidly expanding. And I would say that I didn't grow up that long ago. I was in school in the 90s, and many of the jobs that exist today also didn't exist when I was going through school. So I think as educators and parents, we're always trying to produce and educate students for a world in which there are many unknowns. But I think it's important to remember that AI is a tool, and it's not going to replace human thought or human skills, and that the real focus comes on those cross-curricular skills such as critical thinking, creativity, effective communication, whether it's communicating with people or communicating your prompts to a chatbot. Being able to have those language skills is truly important. And again, digital citizenship. So being able to vet things that are online and evaluate content. So that inquiry process we see is, in my opinion, maybe even more important today in a world of AI. And I do want to be clear that just because we are going to get into the legal part a bit later, so right now students are not permitted to use AI in our schools, but just because students are not able to use AI systems themselves, so maybe they're not able to log into Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT, that doesn't mean that we can't teach about it, because there are plenty of different ways where we can explain to students how AI systems work, where they're getting their data, and we can practice those creative skills and those evaluation skills without actually having them use AI directly. So if you're curious about some resources to help teach students about AI, I've hyperlinked here in our presentation today a page that we've created at Learn. The whole section is on AI. You'll notice that there's one section on how I can teach students about it. And on this page, you'll find a bunch of different resources and lesson plans that teachers and students can do, such as AI, training AI and machine learning with the microbit. Common Sense Media, of course, has some amazing resources on AI and lesson plans for teachers. And they actually have their Media Literacy Week coming up soon with some other amazing resources for educators and library personnel. I want to highlight, I love these AI discussion cards for students and teachers. Again, if you're unable to use AI with students, there's still a lot of these discussion cards that I find are wonderful prompts for classroom discussions or library discussions. So for example, have you ever tried AI in your daily life? If so, what was it like? So just these little prompts to get students thinking about changes that are happening because of AI and some of those ethical considerations that we should be reflecting on. I often get a question, people ask, what AI tools should I use? And the AI tools that you use really depend on, number one, what is approved by your board, which we're going to get into a bit later, but also the kind of input and output you want. So sometimes you want to be able to upload PDFs or CSV files that might have details about your collection or certain authors you want. And maybe you want to select an AI that can accept that type of input. Or maybe you're picking an AI depending on the type of output you want. So perhaps you want to have a video or a photo, and you're going to select an AI that is obviously has that as a strength. And AI systems each have their own strengths and area of improvement. So what I found here on the left of my presentation is a little comparison table for different AI systems. Now, this was updated in June 2025. So it might have changed since then because, again, it is always changing. But you'll see here some of the strengths and limits of different AI tools. So example, ChatGPT, it's great for everyday answers, but Claude is a superstar at writing and coding. So these are things that you might want to consider. And personally, I use AI almost every day now, and I flop between what AI systems I use depending on my task. So if I'm looking to revise an email, for example, for someone, I'm going to go to Claude because it's really good at clarifying my email and making it concise. But if I want to generate something video, for example, I'm going to go look at my Gemini account and see what it will offer me as an output. And again, one of the questions I mentioned this earlier was someone asked if there is a comparison chart in terms of the accuracy. And again, it really depends on the data set and algorithms. So if you're going to look at Ask Britannica, that's pulling from the Britannica library database of vetted articles, perhaps it's going to be more accurate compared to a larger language model like Gemini or ChatGPT that's pulling from the internet as a whole. It really depends on the content that you're searching for. And also the dates that you're searching for. So example, Ask Britannica, I'm not sure how often they train their model on their data versus ChatGPT or Claude that has access to the internet live, meaning that they would have maybe access to newer research and articles as well. So it's a bit of a balance. And as educators and people using AI, we always have to put on our evaluation hat and think critically about the output. And perfect. So I'm going to show you a link to a Padlet that was created by me and some of my colleagues at Learn that has some different AI tools and resources that you can use in your school library. Okay. So I'm going to give a minute for those who might be joining us to scan the QR code, but you will have access to the presentation after today's session. So in the Padlet, you'll see that I put in a few key information about AI. So a link to our AI section of our digital competency site, a few little graphics about digital literacy and some example prompts. But what I really want to focus on right now are these AI tools. And again, the tool that you use is going to depend a bit on your board policy and what kind of output you're looking for and input. Okay. So in general, I had this later on, but I think I'm going to present it now because it makes more of a sense. In general, if you are a Microsoft school board, your school board has approved Copilot for staff use. Again, right now, students do not have permission to be using AI or generative AI. Okay? If you are a Google school board, in general, you are able to access Gemini. And usually you have access to Notebook LM, which is a Google interface as well. Okay? Now, some boards have very much restricted which AI programs staff can use. For example, if you're at EMSB, right now they have only approved Copilot for staff use. Okay? But however, if you're at other boards, they have sometimes opened it up. So other boards have approved special subscription AI tools. For example, some schools like Lester B. Pearson is using Diffit as well, which is a fun tool for educators in terms of changing language level, particularly of text, and creating some lesson activities. If you're at ETSB, I know some teachers are using Magic School. And in general, some school boards have include Canva AI, ChatGPT, and Claude AI. And if ever you have questions about what AI tools are currently approved at your school board, later on in the presentation, I have a link to our local RICI consultant page, because usually your local RICI consultants at your school board are the best people to contact if you have questions about which tools are approved locally at your board. And again, these tools are changing rapidly. So some tools like Kahoot that teachers may have been using for a while now have AI integrated features that school boards are having to take the time to assess and approve. So it really is important to continue asking your local consultants about what is approved at your board, because it is changing rapidly and there's always new tools evolving. So I'm going to open up Copilot, for example, just to show you some of the different tools that exist. So again, Copilot, it's really good at creating images and designing logos. So like most AI systems, you can insert your prompt and get your input, and then you can revise your whatever output is created. When you create a prompt, I'm going to go into this a bit later, but the more specific you are, the better your output is going to be. Again, we have garbage in, garbage out. So some things that I always like to put in my prompt is my role. So I am an expert library staff member, okay? And then you can define a bit about what you would like the AI system to output. I want a 10-minute activity on the Dewey Decimal System for grade 10 students, okay? So again, the more specific you are with your output, the better, or input, the better the output is going to be. So for example, here I have my little 10-minute library challenge. It gives me a time breakdown, quick introductions, a little game that I can do, and then a wrap up. Okay. Perfect. And then I can go and I can revise whatever I created. Okay. Another AI tool that is popular is Gemini if you're in a Google school, and it works very similar to Copilot. Another fun one I want to show you that you will have access to if you're in a Google school is Notebook LM, which is a fun tool that allows you to upload your own content that is, of course, Creative Commons approved. And then you can create podcasts based on that content. So for example, you can say, I'll open up one that I have already done. And what I did is I uploaded my own teaching document that I had, which was a text version of a resource about the Mi'kmaq Nation around 1980. And I uploaded that into the system. And from that document, it gave me a little overview. It also gave me a mind map, which kind of shows a bit about what was included in the resource. And they generate its own podcast, flashcards, quizzes, things like that. So if I click on the audio overview, oh, I guess I didn't generate it last time. I thought I did, but it will provide me really with an engaging podcast that sounds authentic based on the content that I uploaded. So when we talk about universal design for learning, being able to make a podcast is a wonderful way to reach different kinds of learners that might be more auditory based. Okay. And then one of the other tools I wanted to show you is, again, Canva Magic Studio, which is a new AI tool that was released about 5 months ago, which is one of my favorite tools. So if you have a Canva Educators account, which is free for all school staff, you'll have access here to a Canva AI. And what Canva AI can do is, among other things, generate interactive content, such as games or visuals for students and staff. So for example, this is an interactive game. I won't do it now because it takes about 10 minutes to generate the content on Canva AI. But this is an interactive game that I made with Canva AI and I embedded into a website. So you can see here, it's a prompt game for teachers where they have to improve their prompt. I'll just write garbage in there. And then it would give them feedback and points depending on how good their prompt was. So whether they included a QEP reference or grade level. So that is a really fun tool to create interactive content for your library. Wonderful. So I'm going to move on to some of the things that we need to think about when we're using AI in the library. And these are based on the MEQ AI guide that was produced last year and is available in French. Okay, so I encourage you to all check it out if you haven't seen it already. And the guide breaks down what we need to think about into 3 sections. So legality, ethics, and they have pedagogy in the guide for teachers, but I want to talk about a bit more in terms of alignment. So alignment with your pedagogical intentions or your task. So again, as I said a few times during the presentation, students at this point should not be using generative AI. Okay, most generative AI systems are 13 to 18 plus, and the ministry has not said, okay, students should be using AI. So as of right now, most boards are at the standpoint where AI tools are only for staff. Okay, and again, staff can only be using approved tools, and the tools differ greatly depending on the board, and they are always emerging. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a link here to our receipt consultant directory. So if ever you are unsure who to contact at your board, we have most of the board consultants here. So you can feel free, for example, if you're at ETSB, shoot off an email to Eleanor. She'll be able to quickly tell you what tools are approved or not approved at your board. Okay. And like I said before, even though students cannot use AI, staff can still model use of AI and should talk about AI use with students. So even though students can't touch it themselves, I could potentially go on to Gemini and generate 2 images, or go on to Copilot and generate images for students and talk a bit about what AI has generated. Do you think it's valid? And we could do that evaluation piece together in class or in the library. Okay. In terms of legality as well, for sure, we don't want to use any student names, IDs, or addresses, or school information into our AI prompts, because anything that we put into AI system, unless it's explicitly said that it's not, could eventually be used or learned by the AI system. So we definitely don't want to put again, names, credit card information, anything like that into your AI systems. You also don't want to upload any copyrighted material, of course, into any AI. So you should only be uploading content that you have the rights to. And also, we shouldn't be uploading content related to Indigenous nations. So there's this principle of OCAP, which is the principle of Indigenous nations having control over their own data and data sovereignty. So anything related, again, to Indigenous people, I believe we don't want to be putting into AI systems in terms of appropriation, because we don't know how the systems could potentially use that information. And also, we always want to verify and cite our sources and use triangulation. So I wanted to share with you these logos for transparent use of artificial intelligence. You may have noticed them on the intro slide to my presentation. And those are a great way, I believe, to model to students, even if they're not using AI, that it's important to cite AI. And there's different levels of AI use as well. You can create something entirely with AI, in which case, you might want to acknowledge that, or you might have just used AI for brainstorming key terms for your project, in which case you still want to acknowledge that use of AI and to what extent it was used. And to go along with those logos, this is just a little graphic, I believe, that shows the spectrum of use of AI. So it's not necessarily I used AI or I didn't use AI. There's a whole range of levels. So, if students using autocorrect, if students using predictive text, is that using AI tools? If students are generating an image, or if they're rewriting text that they generated by AI. So there's definitely lots of ethical things to consider when we're talking about student and staff use of AI. So I think I'm going to pass it over now to Julian, who's created this amazing resource on copyright and generative artificial intelligence in schools.
All right, so I want to just start by saying I didn't create this alone. Just to give proper credit to all the people involved. I sit on a committee of board level librarians from across Quebec. Most of them are from the French sector, and we were discussing a lot of copyright issues around AI because we kept being asked the same questions over and over and over again. And we realized it didn't matter if it was a French CSS or an English school board. The realities and the interests and in some cases the fears were identical. So we collaborated to put together a very simple genealogy that pretty much focused on the questions we were getting the most because we thought this might be helpful for the rest of the educational community, library personnel, as well as teachers, admin, anyone else, that kind of summarizes how things are now. And we also did it specifically as a genealogy because, as I've mentioned and as Stacey's mentioned, this is all changing really fast. So what if, in 3 months from now or 3 weeks from now, some of these points change? Well, we can actually just go in and update and the URL is still the same. The URL for this, as well as for the French version, are embedded directly into the PowerPoint that Stacy is providing to us to send off to all the participants. So you'll be able to get the direct links for these. So copyright and generative artificial intelligence, Gen I in schools. Number one question we got a lot. Can we use copyrighted work with Gen AI tools? As Stacey already mentioned to us, no. So you can click on here. The answer is clearly no. Like it's not like, well, kind of. It's like, no, you cannot. And actually, Copybeck has made it very clear on their website that this is, of course, the general page for elementary and high school personnel. Big red square on the top. Reproduction licenses within the Copybeck has with publishers does not allow teachers to use copyrighted materials with AI, generative AI. They actually also have another page too, by the way, specifically on a whole bunch of other copyright issues. It is currently available only in French. I'm hoping in the near future they put in a French version, as some of these links actually are English links. So, but if I go back here, true answer, no, you cannot. So as Stacey was mentioning, use only media, only materials that you own or that are like, for instance, Creative Commons, that you are citing properly, things in the public domain, you're fine there, but nothing is copyrighted. Can we enter personal information into Gen AI tools? Yeah, no, don't do this either. Not great. If you're sharing information about anyone else that is a part of your world, especially if we're talking about students, that's very possible that what you're sharing is going to be a violation of Quebec's Privacy Act. If you want to share information about yourself with an AI tool, that is your choice. My suggestion, however, would be to look through the terms of use and the terms of service, whatever legal, whatever point on that tool where they've listed off who owns what and who can do what with that content, because it is very possible your content could be taken without you even realizing it and be used to feed another AI generated creation. So that's just something to keep in mind. I realize for some people, maybe this is not an issue, but it's good to be informed of what is the reality before moving forward. What are some of the other factors involved in Gen AI use? Stacey mentioned some of these, and I do apologize. There's a bit of an overlap for what we're saying, but the idea for this thing here was if you need to share something very quick with a teacher who is asking questions or an administrator, a lot of the points that keep coming up are here. So that's why there's a bit of repetition. So yeah, Gen AI tools have very notable effect on the environment and of course ethics. Also, in terms of professional autonomy, I mean, they're great for in terms of like, oh, create this email telling this person this. Yeah, okay, fine, fine. And then you just send it off. It's like, well, actually, you're now losing your autonomy. You're giving away that power to the device. You're no longer in charge of the message. Always make sure that when you're using these things, you vet it, you look at it again, you go, no, I'm not happy with this. I want to change this, or yes, I agree, this is what I want, use. But you're the professional. You should always be the person in charge of the car going down the highway at 100 miles an hour, not AI. Critical thinking, yeah, this is a big one, and of course, a lot of the issues for library personnel that keeps coming to us is the, well, how can I help my students find out now if something's real or not? And it's like, okay, we've added a level of complexity, but this is the same issue for, whether it be information literacy or digital literacy or media literacy that we've been trying to help students with for basically forever. Yes, it is more complex now. Yes, there are additional things, but a huge number of the tools that we already have, including, for instance, the inquiry process, a lot of those we can still use in order to deal with some of this AI generated questionable content. Or even, is it even generated by AI? Don't know. But it is still possible. Um, Creativity, it's great. It can be very good for helping creativity, but it can also kind of like, yeah, it's good enough. I'm just going to go with that. Yeah, I like it. Like it's a bit of a teeter-totter. So, that is another possibility. And another one that is very present is, perpetuation of prejudices, sorry, because, going back to what Stacey said, they're only as good as the information that is put into them. So, if garbage information goes into it, garbage information is going to come out. And in that same aspect, if only information about the American Southwest from 1975 to 2000 goes in, any kind of information coming out will be specific to how the general media and information being produced in that area during that time period is being reproduced. So you may find that you have, for instance, a very, very small amount of indigenous content within that because, well, that's not from the original data set. So now it just kind of adds the idea of like, oh, well, indigenous people aren't that important there. It's like, whoa, hold on a second. Look at what the AI is giving you. You might be taken for a bit of a ride. You can go into a little bit more detail here in terms of the energy use, which I was mentioning about. It is intense. It's no joke the amount of energy it uses. Um, the other thing too is, I mean, it was mentioned before, copyrights, but also, how do we know if the system itself was respecting copyrights itself when it was creating its data set? I won't go on a tangent here. I could for like a good 15 minutes on the way a lot of online resources, including, for instance, Reddit, YouTube, etc., in a lot of cases, had their content taken without permission and in violation of the terms of service that they had between them and their users, and it's just being used in generated AI. It's like, okay, fine. So, well, that's a bit unsettling. Also, let's say I want to use well, I'm English Montreal School Board, so I want to use Copilot in order to create an image of XYZ. Okay, that's great. Or I want, what was I going to say? A question and answer tile type thing or some trivia things on a specific book. Great. How does it know what elements could be in that image? Like it had to get that information from somewhere. It's like it's being reused and recalculated in different directions. And for the book, how does it know those characters exist in that book or not? That's a bit of a question too, is because for a lot of it, we don't know where it got the information from. Some cases it's very clear in the terms of service as to where they got their information from, and other times not. And then there's also the fact that it's okay, let's look at a book summary. There are so many book summaries for the popular young adult novels on the internet that there's a pretty good chance that the AI data set actually did take it specifically from all these other book reviews of, The Hunger Games, for instance, something extremely popular a number of years ago. So the number of reviews of it is massive. So it had a huge amount of data to pull from. But what about some other ones that like maybe it's new? It's like, okay, well, did somebody upload the book illegally? We We don't always know. So that's just something to keep in mind in terms of its on the how the fact that it is unclear. Effects on critical thinking. I think I already did that one well enough. Prejudices, yes. Yeah. Can AI mislead us? Oh yeah, pretty easily, especially when one of the prime reasons for AI's raison d'etre is to make the user happy. So, or at least satisfy the request. So what Sage was saying about, saying before about like hallucinations. Oh, yes, I found a book that talks just about this. Here it is. Great. And that thing doesn't actually exist. It created this thing to prove that what I was looking for exists. So keep that in mind. Be vigilant. Always do additional triangulation or whatever method that you're going to be using that you have been using for years in terms of to vet information. Continue doing it. Can I quote text? Yeah, this is very much Wild West. We're still coming into it. You can get this link, like I said, in the presentation, but this is where we are now. And we took this one from Queen's University Library because it is a Canadian establishment, so it's probably going to be closer to what will become the norm here. But that is an example of it, and please take a look at it if you want. There's an example of one of them. And do we have to declare the use of AI? Legally, no. Ideally, yes. And of course, Stacy just went through these before. And this also another thing. It's being patriarchy, and this is also another Canadian. These pictograms actually were created by a Canadian, and they're becoming more and more widespread, which is kind of nice as well. Just so people know that I'm looking at your creation. Did you create this? Did you create this with an AI? Or did you just find the best combination keywords to put into an AI system and say, go? Just so the person looking at the final thing, they understand what they're looking at. So, as I said, this is available both in English and in French. If you want, you can reach out to me, or actually our team leader was Nadia Gay from CSS-ME. You can also reach out to her as well. It's not a problem. And of course, this is also Creative Commons, so feel free to share, adapt in any way you want. And I think I've covered this all. So at this point in time, I think I'll hand it back over to Stacy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julian, for sharing that amazing resource that was produced by you and your collaborators. So now I'm going to move on a bit to the ethical considerations. And as Julian did a wonderful job of touching on earlier, I think whenever we're thinking about using AI, we need to ask ourselves, do I really need to? Because AI systems have a huge environmental impact. So on the left of my screen, you'll see a little graphic that was created by some of our colleagues in the RC network about the energy consumption of AI. So you can see, I know it's pretty small if you're maybe looking at this on Zoom, depending on how you're viewing the presentation, but on the top line, it's showing the energy consumption in watts per hour of a regular Google search. Okay. And then you see the energy output of a ChatGPT, a general question that you might put into Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT. It's quite a big difference, as you can see. It's like 4 or 5 times as much at least. Then you go up to progresses to image generation and video generation. And that's 20 frames per second for 4-second video. So imagine the energy output if you're generating a 30-second video, for example, using AI. So I think, again, environmental consumption and impact of AI systems is something we really should be talking about amongst each other, but also with youth whenever we're talking about who can use AI and what for. If I'm going to be able to, quickly write a 1-second email by myself, maybe I'm going to not use AI to always reword everything if it's not going to take me too long, keeping in mind what environmental impact it can have in the long run. So again, as we touched on before, another ethical question is, where did the data come from? So as Julian mentioned, if you're using Copilot, it's accessing the internet, maybe most of the data or websites on the internet, maybe the majority of them are produced by non-Indigenous people. So if you're asking AI about the history of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, for example, if you're in Montreal, that data might have some inaccuracies or might be from a predominantly non-Indigenous perspective or standpoint. So I'm very interested in social sciences for sure. And that's always something that I'm considering when using AI to generate lesson plans or activities. And again, with the biases in the system. And again, how is the input being used? So if I'm inputting information about what I'm looking for in a lesson plan, is that AI system eventually going to be using that data to try to sell me something down the road as an educator and a librarian? So I'm always kind of critical. Some of those tools are free or at low cost now, and I'm always wondering, are maybe they're going to up the prices or use my data in a way that's going to eventually come back and maybe not be so ideal. So now I have a bit of an ethical game because I think with ethics, there's this huge gray area. There's no right or wrong. And again, it's a continuation in the middle of these perspectives or points. But these prompts are just to get you thinking a bit more about the ethical use of AI in the library. So here I have two questions, a this and a that. I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to ask you if you feel comfortable sharing a bit about where you lie on the spectrum, knowing that it's a huge spectrum. You could react using the Zoom reaction buttons on your computer, using the balloons if it's a this, or the rocket ship if it's a that. So the first question is this. So we should be using AI to analyze our collections and identify gaps maybe and suggest new acquisitions of books that could reflect Quebec's multicultural society. So maybe you're thinking that way or this way. Or perhaps AI might perpetuate existing biases in our collection development, and that we should be really considering if it's only kind of reflecting materials that we already have. So again, if you feel comfortable, you can react, maybe share a bit about where you lie on the spectrum. But again, obviously it's a spectrum. So you might find yourself kind of in the middle being like, oh, maybe I'd analyze this, get it to analyze this. But again, I'm going to really critically think about, is this really different from what we already have in our collection? Okay. My second one. So this is we should use AI to automate our tedious tasks like cataloging new books and identifying and removing duplicate records, which I hear a bit can be very time consuming. Or maybe you're leaning towards that side, so that we should only rely on human expertise because there could be inaccuracies that occur and little things, contextual things that AI systems might miss. So again, the point is here is thinking, what could AI be good at? And maybe what do we need that human evaluation piece for? And again, if you don't, you can use the reactions, or you could also write in the chat if you're having some thoughts about these prompts. Again, a bit on this, should we use AI to create engaging activities about information literacy? Because it can do so really quickly to personalize learning. Or maybe you're leaning towards that side, which is using AI to teach about information literacy could be really confusing. And that really we need to be thinking more about students' research skills and critical thinking skills and triangulation and building those skills without AI so that they can better evaluate those systems. Right. So again, the idea of this is just to think a bit about where you stand and some of the debates that go on when we're talking about AI use. And again, it's very much a gray area. So again, AI is really the starting point for more human work. So in Quebec, we have this wonderful thing called the inquiry process that I learned about when I began at Learn, that really guides students through this non-linear process of conducting research and inquiry. So how they plan, search, use, and evaluate and use tools. And AI, I believe, can be helpful throughout. And there's many things that we need to consider with AI and research. And if ever this is new to you, the inquiry process, or if ever you'd like a refresher about what it is and some of the resources that exist, I invite you to go to our Digital Competency in Action website. There's a link in the slideshow that's available on the QSLiN website that you can go on to learn more. And as one of the takeaways from today's session, I know it's a bit small here, but I did go through the inquiry process a bit myself to think about what AI means for each of these steps and what are some things we might need to reflect on. So for example, in the planning session where students are thinking about developing questions and key terms, well, maybe as teachers, we could model how AI could be used to help generate keywords or refine topics for our students. So if they gave us a rough idea, maybe we could hop on and be like, hey, maybe we can model this together. What kind of other words could we use? What are some synonyms or things that are commonly used in library record or library systems? But then maybe we need to reflect on kind of how we can design questions during that stage that AI can't necessarily give the answer to. So again, giving those answers that maybe have a request a personal element or a contextual element that's very local, so that students aren't just using AI to do their final research project for them. So again, this will be a bit of a takeaway because it's a bit wordy on my slide, but you'll have this to kind of ponder and think about after today's session, and it will be available on the QSLiN website. So finally, because I'm realizing time's going by really fast, we have like less than half an hour left. I want to talk about prompts and what makes a good prompt, because AI does have a huge environmental impact. So I think if we can make our prompts as effective and efficient as possible, the better for the environment, and it saves us time. So when you're writing a prompt for any AI system, I think it's really important that you specify first your role. So I always mention in my prompts exactly what I'm looking for or what I want AI to give me. So if I'm doing educational content, I will write in my prompt, I will start out with, you are the world's best educational consultant Quebec has ever seen. I want you to produce blah, 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 blah. So really specifying that role gives it an idea, okay, I'm coming at whatever prompt or whatever demand they're asking in that lens or that frame of mind. So for you, maybe you're going to write, you are one of the best school librarian personnel, and see what it comes up with. I always mention my location, that I'm in Quebec, especially if I'm aligning things with educational content, because then it knows a bit about the frame of I'm in Canada and I'm in Quebec. So I'm going to maybe it's going to maybe encourage the AI system to pull from our Quebec documents or websites that exist, because I always think going local is the best. Word of caution, if you're saying that you're in Quebec and you want the output or whatever you create to be in English, I usually explicitly mention that, because sometimes even if you write your prompt in English, it will give you your output in French if you mention that you are in Quebec. Also, always specifying the output type and length really helps. So if you just ask it for a lesson plan, sometimes AI or infographic on the inquiry process, you might come up with something that is way too text heavy or way too long and not as helpful. So really specifying what kind of output, if you want a video, an infographic, a paragraph, something point form, really, really helps with the output. And again, some keywords that you might want to include could be different authors or different genres, grade level, specific reading levels. Like when I work with teachers, one thing I love about AI is that if I put a long paragraph, I can put, okay, this is what I'm using, but I want to adapt this for a student with a higher or a lower specific reading level. And the systems are pretty efficient at doing that for me. Again, you might want to mention terms like reader's advisory. Another thing, a bit about accessibility too, is that if you have students or a specific need to cater to, so maybe you're looking, I don't know if this is coming, but like maybe you're looking for books that might have good fonts for dyslexic students or something like that. Maybe you can write that into your prompt and it might give you different kinds of output. Again, more specific, the better. Garbage in, garbage out. Here on the left of me is a little guide, prompt guide framework from AI from Education, which is one of my favorite newsletters to stay up to date with AI. And it just kind of gives, again, some more tips like act like an expert, use a specific model, or use the MEQ, use the Geography, History, and Citizenship program, or the Dewey Decimal System. The more details you can give it, the better. So then I included here a link at the top. If you click on it, to AI Prompts for Librarians. It's a wonderful guide that was created by Eric Kurtz, and it's Creative Commons. And these 4 prompts are examples of the greater guide. So here I'll show you, it's quite long. Yeah, it's a few pages, 3 pages of different prompts that I encourage you to explore for just some ideas of how you could use AI in the library for your tasks. So an example could be to make reading bingo cards. I love that one because kids love bingo for a specific grade level with different formats. You could ask Copilot or Gemini, for example, to write a professional email to your administrator about weeding an outdated books, or to explain why you weeded a specific book. Again, vetting it to make sure that the content reflects your personal voice, of course. Creating posters about staying safe and kind and responsible online, or maybe games about plagiarism, for example, with examples and explanations. Sometimes I have asked ChatGPT or Claude, depending what system I worked with, to generate an example for students. And it's really important to also, in the prompt, ask it for the answers, because it doesn't automatically do that. So again, being specific as possible, being like, I want questions or an activity with feedback or with responses to help the students or staff, whoever you're working with. So kind of brings me to the last part, which is really to get experimenting. We have about 20 minutes left. So I was thinking maybe we'll give 10 minutes if you want to open up Copilot, Gemini, maybe explore some of those new tools if they're approved at your board, like a Notebook LM if you're a Google board, and to try some different prompts and output, see what kind of output it would give you. And then to ask, oh, look, I'm a 1111. Something happened there. Sorry, my slideshow. But first, to visit Copilot or Gemini or another tool that's approved, try some prompts, experiment with something new to you, because I know I've seen from a bit of the registration feedback, some people are already using some tools quite often. So maybe there's a different way that you'll find to use it in that prompt guide. And then to ask some questions to refine the response. So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to, I guess, play, experiment. While you're doing that, I'm going to be also experimenting on the screen and kind of narrating a bit of what I'm doing. So if you don't feel comfortable or don't have access to Copilot or Gemini right now, you can follow along with me. And then the last 10 minutes we'll come back. I'll invite you to share in the chat, and maybe we'll go through some more resources about how to stay up to date with AI. So you can break off now. And like I said, I'm going to go on my own and kind of narrate a bit about what I've been playing with. So for example, here, one of my favorite tools is Canva AI. So earlier, because I said it takes about 10 minutes to play with, when Julian was presenting, I wrote in this prompt. So I am a library personnel, so I specified the role. I'm in an English school board in Quebec, so where I'm working, or I'm not actually working for an English school board, but and the province. And then what I wanted an interactive game to teach grade 5 and 6 students about different book genres and give them book recommendations for each genre with new-ish books. Okay. So that was a very quick, short prompt. And then with Canva Code or Canva AI, this is what it created for me on the right. So you'll see it says a book genre explorer game. I haven't actually played with it, so it'll be the first thing we do together. It says click on a genre below to learn more about it and exciting book reads. So I'm going to look at maybe fantasy, see what it gives me. Okay, so fantasy books transport you into magical worlds filled with mythical creatures and heroic quests. Great. I like it. It gives me book recommendations. I don't know any of these, but maybe I've been out of the fantasy kids books for a while. I don't even know if they're real books. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to search that in just a Google search, and we'll see if it actually exists, because I want to be sure. Oh, look. Yes, it does. Okay. Many of you are probably laughing at me because maybe this is a very popular book and I don't know about it. But again, always something to double check AI to make sure that those books that it's recommending are really existing. Okay, so now I'm going to look at another section. Okay, mystery books are about solving puzzles. Okay, so this one maybe takes some time for me to vet. But I really like how interactive it is, and that it kind of gives students different recommendations from what it is. I'm going to try just to model how I might revamp this. I'm going to say, can you make sure this is accessible to students and using a sans serif font, just because I want to make sure, again, for accessibility. Can you include the Harry Potter series, because I am a huge Harry Potter series and any fan. So I'm going to see if it will include Harry Potter now in its next generation under one of the topics. So we'll see. Great. So see, then maybe this could be my first generation, but then I could customize it using maybe books that I have already existing in my collection, or that you're doing a showcase on at the library, so that students could kind of weed through it. And while it's generating the code, it's going to take a few minutes to make version 2. I do want to show you here is that with Canva code, it's a bit different. I could click here to use it in a design. So if I want to put it in a website, so that I could just have, a QR code somewhere in my library that could say explore different book genres, that could be on the wall for students to explore, I could, or if I wanted to include it in a presentation that I was giving to students on different book genres with more detail, there's plenty of ways to use this kind of interactive content. So here's version 2. So you see it said it switched the font, and it added Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone to fantasy recommendations. Great. So there it is. So this could be really fun, and you could see you could add maybe more details with the book recommendations. Maybe you could include the number, the row of where you find it in the library for students. So that's one example. What else? I'm going to go maybe and take one of these other prompts on something else from the librarian challenge here, or the librarian prompt guidelines. Great. So maybe I'm going to do here 3 lesson ideas for teaching 6th graders about how to evaluate credibility for media literacy. I'm going to model maybe with Copilot, since Copilot is the tool that the majority of school boards in English school boards in Quebec have approved for teacher use. So I'm going to go and start a new tab. Okay, I'm going to put my prompt in, but you'll notice some things about this prompt. Firstly, it doesn't specify where I'm teaching. It doesn't specify the role that I want it to take, that it's for the library. So I'm going to do some jigging just to make the prompt more specific so that I have a better output from the onset, and I'm not asking it to regenerate and regenerate content again, because I love the environment and nature, and I want to make my prompt the best as possible from the beginning. So I am going to add a sentence about my role, or I want you to act as a professional library school staff member in Quebec's English schools. So just 3 lesson ideas. It doesn't say how long those lessons could be. 3 15 minutes, let's put, because I don't want to end up with huge unit plans. Minute lesson ideas to teach grade 6 students evaluate website. And maybe I want to add some more details. I want it interactive, and I want it to follow, let's say, critical thinking ideology of Garfield Jenny Newman, because I know that I know that a lot of people are learning about Garfield Jenny Newman in some of the boards today, this year and last year. Oops, I'm spelling his name wrong. Okay, so there I am using somebody's specific name, but I'm assuming it's an author, so great. So here it's giving me my 3 lessons rooted in the critical thinking framework. So here I have different examples. Students are presented with 2 websites. They have a credibility checklist to evaluate the site, use think, pair, share. That's great, but maybe I want it to produce this credibility checklist for me. So I say I like lesson 1, generate the checklist for me. And we'll see what happens. Perfect. So there I have a little kind of checklist that I could copy and paste into Google Classroom or print for students. And again, it gives me some discussion questions. Okay. Oh, perfect. One thing that is also useful to know, so example, if I go to Gemini, again, I'm going to give you about 1 or 2 more minutes to play around with AI on your own. But it's just to mention that you can add files. So here, if I add files, I can upload, again, files that I have permission to upload. I don't want to break any copyright laws. But if I wanted to upload a file, for example, of details about a library collection that had the decimal numbers, the name of the author, and the description of the book, then I could ask AI to do things with that specific document that I uploaded. Okay. And then if I click on tools here in Gemini, you'll see I have some of the different tools. So deep research, that might give me some more sources. And you can ask for it to create images or this guided lesson about what you wanted to learn about with some different ideas. So I'm going to go back and invite anyone, if they tried something new with AI, or if they had a bit of an aha moment with some of the prompts, or thought about a different way that they could use AI in their daily tasks. I invite you to perhaps write in the chat a bit about something that you learned today or discovered that maybe you feel like sharing with the group. Or it could be also another way that you regularly use AI in your tasks that maybe other people in the session could benefit from, or also kind of hop on board and start using AI for that task as well. I'm going to give a few minutes to see if anyone wants to pop in some questions in the chat or kind of comment a bit on what they discovered or something that they learned. Wonderful. So I see Chelsea said that she likes using Canva, but hasn't tried Canva AI tool. So she looks forward to trying it. Chelsea, I love Canva AI. It's amazing. So I wish you a lot of fun playing around with it. Perfect. Someone said they learned a lot on AI. Thank you for the presentation. You're very welcome. I'll give a few more minutes for people if you want to share, again, different things that you've tried before, different ways that AI has really helped you in some of your library tasks. Please feel free to include those in the chat. I'm going to hop on to the next slide while people might be typing. Oh, thank you, Chris. Yeah, that's the website to make your free Canva education account. And the Canva education really does give you access to a lot of those premium features like Canva AI. So it's worth the extra minute or two it takes to import your board address and approve your location. Oh yeah, and Chelsea mentions the environmental impact. Yeah, it's I really love that graphic of showing the bars visually about how much energy is consumed comparing the regular Google search, for example, to an AI generation, because it's huge when it says something like that. I was thinking to myself yesterday, because I got a new washing machine at home and it came with a big sticker saying energy efficient warning, and I'm like, it's a wonder that we don't have those on AI systems yet, that there's a warning or a little notice about the environmental impacts. Maybe it's coming, maybe it's not. It's just something that I was thinking of last night in preparation of this session. So I learned a lot about AI and I'll continue to practice with them. Great. So I'm going to jump in to just wrap up the conversation about AI. Is staying up to date is a huge question because it's always changing, always. Like I said, I had an interview that I did the other day with Heritage Lab, which is a cool upcoming AI tool based in Nunavik that is translating Inuktitut using Inuktitut resources and data sovereignty in Nunavik, Quebec, to help translate Inuktitut to English and French. And now they're doing a pilot in the health board. It's amazing. But they were saying, even us, we're working in AI, and every day we get an email and our mind is blown about the advancements. So if you're looking to stay up to date, some of my recommendations are to check out these Google and OpenAI labs that exist, because these are where the AI companies are launching new tools that will be coming up soon. So for example, if I'm on Copilot, I go to the labs tab here on the left, and I can see some of the really cool upcoming tools. And sometimes I can even get a first try some of these tools and get to give feedback about the tool's existence and how it's doing. So I really invite you to check out some of those labs that exist. They're really fun. Another great resource, as I mentioned, that prompt guide, for example, that was earlier in my presentation, came from AI from Education. They have a wonderful newsletter that they put out, I think, every week or so. I get it in my inbox with different updates. They have a lot of resources about AI for educators and students, and different resources that you might want to look into, like there again, prompt library, curriculum resources. Again, they're really wonderful newsletter that they put together for educational staff. And again, there are two takeaways that I prepared for today's session that will be on the QSLiN website along with the recording and I believe this presentation. But one is just an infographic for library personnel on what AI is, with a link to the Padlet that I showed you with some of the different tools today, with a QR code to go to the interactive Genially that was created with the common questions that library personnel might encounter. And then again to the the prompt gallery that was created by Eric Kurtz for library personnel. And again, on the back side, if you want to print it two-sided, there's also the inquiry process in AI. So again, about looking at the inquiry process and how AI might give us more considerations or things to reflect on when we're talking about that with our students and staff. So that kind of takes me towards the end of the presentation. I see a few more questions in the chat. Right, so thank you, a lot to think about. Great, Chris shared a wonderful, a news article about the environmental impacts of AI. So that's a great resource if you want to learn more. Again, I can't wait to hear a bit more about how you're using AI in your library tasks.
Thank you, Stacy. Actually, but I did have one other thing. Before, you were using the notebook LM, and it was generating the podcast, but it was still doing it while you're presenting. Can you quickly go back and just play it for a few seconds, assuming it's ready yet? I'm not sure if it is ready or if your computer was too distracted with everything else going on.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. That's great. So yeah, so I uploaded the document here. I see on the right that my podcast is created. I should have probably specified how long I wanted it. Again, specific, because I see it's 41 minutes.
We will not watch the whole thing.
No, but here, I'll just double check that my sound, hopefully I shared my sound, but I'll play it now so you can get a bit of an idea of what it sounds like.
Welcome to the deep dive. So you've given us this really interesting collection of sources about the Micmac of Quebec. We're going to look at everything from their deep history right up to, well, the changes around 1980.
That's the plan. We're aiming to synthesize all that information. We'll explore their territory, their history, the culture, and the sort of social reality, especially in the Gaspé Peninsula, up through the 80s and a bit beyond.
And I think a key insight here, the thing we really want you to take away, is this incredible story of endurance.
Exactly. It's about how a distinct culture.
Okay, so I think we get the point there, but now I'm seeing that Joan is posing a question. It made up the voices for the podcast?
Yeah, so it has AI voices in Notebook LM that kind of come on. It's usually it's the same two kind of voices that it uses. But you can see it's kind of a neat, different, engaging way to present information to students. And they've actually, since I played around with it, have this new interactive button I've noticed where I believe you can kind of play the audio and ask questions, but I haven't experimented with it too much.
It's evolving so fast. Yeah, it's hard to keep on top of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Stacy. And of course, the team at Learn for helping us even host this event. So I hope this has been not only informative, I also hope it's been a little bit empowering. A lot of times AI can feel kind of like uncertain because it's so new and it seems to be everywhere. And I mean, granted, part of that is perhaps exaggerated a bit by the media, but not just because of that. It really is very much a part of our lives moving forward. So, as I said before, the presentation from today and the other documents that were shared, they will be found on the QSLiN website. And if you're in the future watching this recording, they will be in the comments, the video description beneath the video above the comments. Thank you, everybody. And we hope to see you at the next session in February. Bye.